So in today's video is going to be super simple. I just want to give you an honest comparison between HEC, LSE, INSEAD and London Business School. If you are in a position where you need to choose one or another, I just want to say congratulations. Getting in one of these schools is actually a tremendous achievement. Like multiple of these schools, we're talking about acceptance rates below 10%. So in this video, I don't want to talk about exit salary. I don't want to talk about rankings. I don't want to talk about any stats that you can look up on the internet. In this video, I want to do something that is going to be beyond surface level. I want to give you my experience because I was studying at London Business School in 2023, and also from the perspective of people that I know, of all the students that we help, because you probably know if you follow me on my socials, but I'm the co-founder of MIMPrep, one of the world leading admission consultancy for business school. And we helped in the last 2 years, more than 50 people get into London Business School, more than 30 people get into HEC. We helped a bit less than 60 people in LSE, INSEAD as well. We helped a lot of students. So I know a lot of people from this school, inside the school, that are doing the program or that are working for us like a student manager. And I wanted to really give something that is authentic and something that comes from the student voice, and not like, just a website or just someone like another admission consultant that is 45 years old and is super disconnected about what's happening in the business school right now. So super simple. I'm going to use several categories. The first category is going to be international, the environment in the school, and the diversity of its student body. We start with my business school, London Business School. So I think in this comparison, London Business School is actually the most cosmopolitan business school of all. We're talking about more than 60 nationalities. INSEAD, of course, the business school of the world. This is their motto as well. They want to be super cosmopolitan. And one of the strategies to increase their position in the ranking is to actually increase the number of nationality in the class. They're going to push on diversity as well. But I still think that LBS is the most cosmopolitan school of all of the schools in the ranking. Why? Because it's in London. And London is the most cosmopolitan of all the business school cities in this ranking. You probably know if you studied in the UK or in London, but London Business School, you're gonna have like a lot of people. Like, just if I look at my cohort, if I look at my friends, at the people that were in my class and that are now my very, very good friend, people come from Netherlands, Italy, France, Spain, India. For example, one of my very good friends is French, of course, but he's actually French-American. He studied in French High School of Dubai, etc., etc. If you look at me, for example, I'm French and Chinese. I studied in the UK and France, and I lived a part of my life in Shanghai, basically my mother's city. And now I live between London, Dubai, and Paris. So there's a lot of people like me in LBS that are very cosmopolitan. I would say that this is, for LBS, it's the norm. So yeah, like it's super, super diverse, super cosmopolitan. So INSEAD, strong international diversity as well. I think I've looked at something that say that INSEAD don't have 10% of their cohort coming from one single nationality. And if you look at my students at INSEAD, we're talking about people, from Singapore, from the Middle East, Italian, French, like all basically people come from all over the world. And I would say that's something that is really, really good about INSEAD that LBS doesn't have. There's going to be more, I would say, campus life, in the sense of like you don't have the pros of living in a big city such as London, of course, but the campus life, I would say, add to the quality of the connection that you make. At LBS, at first, there was a team building exercise that they called Away Day. Basically, you spend one day and you go to a London suburb and you're going to work on a construction site to give back to a children's shelter, for example. So when I was at LBS, we went to a suburb of London and we spent the day assembling, constructing a playground for a children's shelter, basically. And this is just one day. So you're going to be in a group with the exact group you have for the group project that you have for the following semesters. But INSEAD, the quality of the team building exercise is actually way more intense. So you're going to go to the forest for 3 days at the beginning of INSEAD. And basically, it's going to be way more intensive, way more bonding than the away day at LBS. I would say the cons of LBS, of course, LBS is going to try to reinforce this cohesion that ideas between students. But for example, if you are from London as well, you already have your friends or you already have a life in London, then sometimes it's easier to just go see your old friends and don't, go out with like your LBS friend. And I think that this can be a bit of an obstacle when we talk about like, the student life. The LBS is still super, super good for a connection, etc., etc. So INSEAD, big pros. Campus life, there's pros and cons. Some people, they love it. Some people, they don't. You're going to be in Fontainebleau basically for 10 months. And then you have the possibility to choose between Abu Dhabi and Singapore. And just in terms of like location, super cosmopolitan just in the design of the curriculum. The only cons of Fontainebleau is that Fontainebleau is not a very vibrant city, to be very honest with you. There's not that much to do in Fontainebleau and you easily get bored. All my INSEAD friends, they tend to spend the weekend in Paris and they need to take a train. It's 1 hour to go to Paris, and then, Paris is actually good. But even in comparison to London, I would say that Paris is way less cosmopolitan. So this is just my opinion. HEC Paris, so I would say that, like I would argue that Jouy-en-Josas is even worse than Fontainebleau because you don't even have the charm of a cool city. Jouy-en-Josas is really the middle of nowhere. It's the same as Fontainebleau. You're going to be 45 minutes away from Paris. So yeah, and I would say that HEC Paris, actually, if you look at the student body, is not the most cosmopolitan of all. I would say it's more European-centric. There's going to be a lot of Italian, there's going to be a lot of German, a lot of French, of course, because it's still a French business school. And if you look at student societies, if you look at the student body's design, you have this domination coming from French preparatory students. So I would say that HEC is not going to be the most cosmopolitan, is not going to be the most bonding all of these schools in this ranking. They have a bit of a problem trying to mix the Indian and Chinese and the European students all together, whereas LBS does it way better and INSEAD does it way better. Because of the French, I would say, cliquey kind of attitude. And because of there's a lot of French people in HEC, and I think that even in HEC, if you don't speak French, it can be a bit of a handicap. LSE, super cool school. There's going to be way more Chinese, way more Indian, way more Russian in LSE, and it's going to be a bit more academical. So there's going to be more that are actually expected from you from like a student perspective, and that's why you don't have that much time to actually socialize and meet over people. And also you have I would say you feel more the counts of actually living in London, in the sense of it's a big city. There's going to be a lot of your classmates that are going to be scattered around the city. There's going to be a lot of people that already have their past, their old life, their old friends living in London. So it's going to be a bit harder to actually socialize if you don't, join a student society, if you don't go to campus every day, etc., etc. Compared to London Business School, which 2 campuses are in Marylebone, because in London Business School, there's a cool thing that basically all students, they live in Marylebone or St. John Wood at the north, or Maida Vale or St. John Wood, basically the north of Marylebone, because it's a bit cheaper. But basically everyone is kind of 5 minutes to each other, 10 minutes to each other. And that's why you kind of have this campus experience in the sense of you go to Tesco grocery store and you can bump up an MBA or with another student from the school, and then you say okay, oh, actually I'm going to the bar with 2 friends, if you want to join, let's go. And and then you can go to the gym together. There's the LBS gym, the LBS swimming pool, you can see people there, and then you go to classes, etc., etc. So you have this kind of campus but you live in the city kind of vibe, which is really, really cool. Number 2 category of this comparison is going to be school prestige and career opportunities. So let's start with HEC Paris. I think that HEC Paris, of all the schools, arguably the most competitive school to get in and arguably the most prestigious school. If you look at the rankings, HEC is going to be constantly ranked better than any other school if we talk about master in management at least. HEC Paris in France is the best business school in France. If you go to the barber and you say, I've done HEC Paris, the barber is going to say, okay, your boss is going to be impressed. And there's this strong tradition in France that HEC is basically the school that teaches people to be a CEO of a big company. Actually, if you look at the CAC 40, so the 40 biggest company on the French stock exchange, I think that 12 of them come from HEC, which is huge. And yeah, so to tell you about I would say the domination of HEC in France and in Europe. But this is where it gets interesting. I really think that HEC still does not have the presence that LBS and INSEAD or even LSE have in Asia and in the US. In the sense of HEC MBA is not very well represented. In the US, early career programs are not super well known. I was speaking with an American VC guy, and the guy was asking me about is it a bachelor, is it undergrad, or for them it's like bachelor and then MBA, and that's it. So HEC in the US and in Asia is not going to be the most represented, like the most well-known school. So whereas LSE is well-known in the world, RBS as well, and INSEAD because of its MBA that is super famous and super prestigious, they tend to have like a stronger brand image worldwide than HEC. But if you want to start your career in France, then HEC is the best business school you can do. RBS still in London is the best school that you can do because it's way more career oriented than LSE. LSE is way more academical in the sense of like there's going to be a lot of people doing research, there's a lot of people working for, I would say, government organization or even like in academia. RBS is not at all like the goal is to have like, you know, the best salary after graduation, and this is big factor in the ranking. Let's not forget that RBS is a business like any other. They're trying to sell very expensive courses, and that biggest marketing vessel to sell these courses are the rankings. So for them it's super important to maintain a super high salary because this is the number one factor that's basically justified the very expensive tuition fees that you need to pay if you get in, and to motivate people to actually apply to the school. So yeah, in terms of opportunities in London, I think that RBS places the best in London if you look at IB, finance in general, consulting, you know, growth equity, VC, etc. You can look at the stats on the website, but it's always going to be above 95% in terms of placement percentage of the class. So yeah, social life, quality experience. RBS, it's actually super crazy because it's funny because this sounds like a trailer to go to RBS, but actually I was super satisfied and super happy about like my experience there. But the student life at RBS is actually super cool because you have all the pros of living in a big city like London, super vibrant, restaurant, nightclub, museum. There's everything that you need to really, you know, grow as a person and get fulfilled. If we compare it to LSE, I would say that people are more well-rounded in my experience in the sense of like they're good academically, and they want to have a career, don't get me wrong, and they're super career focused and super like a workaholic for a lot of them. As a very active social life, do cool stuff like, you know, travel to super exotic places, know to speak like, you know, 4 or 5 languages, etc. This is for me like a well-rounded guy or well-rounded girl, and RBS alumni, there's a lot of people like this. So it was not rare to, you know, actually go to Morocco, Marrakesh, actually go to Ibiza for like 3-4 days, or actually go back to Paris to see people, etc. because, you know, London enables you to do all this. But I really think that in terms of quality of life and student life, RBS was one of the best alternatives. And if you look at these 4 schools, yeah, like, you know, I remember the global experience that we've done. We went to San Francisco, again, all the people that were there, like super friendly guys, like super well-rounded people. And I really think that if you look at the student that I sent to INSEAD, it's really comparable in the sense of like people speak multiple languages, they're going to be super open, they travel all around the world, and I think there's a lot of very cool people in this school. Sometimes, of course, you know, you're not going to be the most academical, but don't get me wrong, you have like a very high standard academically, but you're not going to be like a nerd, I would say. These people are actually the ones that are going to do very well in their career and in the long term as a human being. And I think that business school such as INSEAD and RBS really emphasize on that and really try to hire complete individual. And actually, like, it's super interesting because one of the questions that we have in the scorecard that the school send to the alumni interviewer to give interview to prospective student that wants to get into RBS is, would you appreciate the fact that this student will be in your cohort? And then second is going to be, do you think that this student would represent the RBS alumni network in a positive way? So it shows that you need to be likable, you need to be well-rounded, and you need to fit in this very cosmopolitan community. The thing about LSE is that they're super finance heavy in the sense of like they put a huge pressure on finance career, and because of this, overall ambience of the school is going to be a bit less fun. Let's just put it this way, because it is. There's going to be more nerds, there's going to be more people that wants to go very technical, like 60-70% of people at LSE do finance and that are doing like super technical masters such as, you know, accounting finance, private equity in finance, econometrics, etc. So you're going to have more, I would say, academic people. So yeah, and then at HEC Paris, I would say that for all the students that went there, you need to understand that it's going to be French dominated and that is going to be European centric. So yeah, if you accept this, and you like the campus life and you don't mind being in the middle of nowhere, I think you can really have fun. One of the difference in terms of students in HEC, of course, the caliber is going to be the best, like academically, and also in terms of ambition level, I think it's going to be the best of all the schools that I'm talking about. But it's very comparable, but I would say slightly better. The thing about HEC is also that most people, they do the program in 2 years or 3 years. So that's why like maybe the maturity of the people at HEC is not going to be as developed in the sense of professionally and not on a human level. But there are people that maybe, you know, they want to take a gap year. There's a lot of students at HEC that take a gap year, so they do the program in 3 years. So they're not as in a hurry as RBS or LSE or INSEAD, in the sense of at HEC, for example, first year, you're not going to be applying to maybe some internship, or maybe you're going to go to career, maybe you're going to network, maybe you're going to start to try to understand like what you want to do career-wise, like concretely. Of course, there's the story that you sold to the school to get into the school, but do you really want to actually do it? Are you changing your mind, etc., etc.? And I think, you know, at RBS, INSEAD, LSE, school that have very professionalizing one-year program, when you get into RBS, the first thing that you see is the career service center. They tell you, okay, this is the timeline for banking application, this is the timeline for consultant application, you need to have your CV ready, you need to have this, you need to have this, and then you're going to be start to apply. Not internship, but graduate program, so full-time position after graduation. And that's also something to take into account when you compare these schools. And all the other programs, INSEAD, LBS, and LSE, it's going to be 1 year. LBS, I know that you have the possibility of taking one more semester, but to be honest with you, there's not that much people that do it. So yeah, it's not super common. Like basically 80% of people, they're gonna have a job after the master in management. So just to summarize, I would say that LBS is the best if you want to have a balanced social life and if you want to start your career in London. But yeah, INSEAD, super strong presence in Asia because of their Singapore campus, very cool student life, very balanced social life. So yeah, it's a school where you can really have a career and also have fun like RBS. HEC, I think, like, you know, like as I told you in this video, if you want to work in France and stay in France for all your career, HEC is the best business school you can do in terms of connection, in terms of prestige, in terms of like opportunities that you're going to get after the master. But keep in mind that it's going to be a bit more French dominated, pros and cons. If you're French and you want to stay around French people, why not? But if you're not French, can have this kind of like cliquey feeling, and I don't think it's super good. And then LSE, I think it's out of all the 4 schools that we talk about today, I think it's the more academical school. Yeah, if you want to work, for example, in international organization, if you want to do political economy, if you want to do something more related to academia, I think it's the best school of all 4 business schools that I've discussed in this video. But you need to take into account that in terms of like social life, and you're gonna be a bit disappointed if you compare LSE to LBS or INSEAD, for instance. So yeah, hope you all like this video. Hope maybe I answered some of your questions and maybe you had like some clarification about something. If you have any question, please shoot in the comment. I always try to answer to comments. And if you're applying to business school and you want to get an edge, I don't know when you're watching this video, but basically we're gonna take 120 students on our VIP all-inclusive offer, and then all the other students, for example, if you're applying to business school, you're studying for the GMAT, or you want to get more information about business school in general. And what we're really trying to do with this platform is to actually increase the quality of information on the market, in the sense of like there's a lot of things that admission consultant and that business school are going to be pushing because it's in their best interest. I'm talking about, for example, the weight of the GMAT. I'm talking about, for example, the fact that they really want to push you to apply their specific business school before another one. So they're going to say, you know, apply first round, etc., etc. There's going to be a lot of misconception, a lot of rumor in this market. And what we're trying to do with this community is to actually level the playing field, give you fresh information from actually like verified sources, from actually the student that we help with the agency. We've helped more than 250 students in the last 2 years. And yeah, basically give you fresh, exact information and give you access to a community where you can have access to actually mentors that went to the business school and ask them questions if you have any question. So I see you in the community if you want to get serious about business school application and master application in general. I hope you enjoyed this video and I see you in the next one. Peace.